I didn't have to let go of every idea because it wasn't the right time, but looking at, well, what are the main ones? And then what one am I working on right now? Okay, well, I'm working on the show. Great, now I have the show. Well, what is the next iteration of the show? How does it keep moving, evolving, and growing to the things that I need it to be?
And it was happening off and on for a year and a half. But I was like, well, fuck, if I'm not going to be around here for this, then what's even the reason for it? Like, I just give it all to my nephew, give it out to people around me. And
we love.
When you're doing something and you're almost done with it, you're like, oh shit.
People are going to see me, and what does that feel like? And that's why this is the most important moment to me, because I'm not hiding. I mean, there's still things that people won't know about anyone, but I'm not hiding who I am. I'm not embarrassed about my identity. I'm not carrying that shame. I have a place to put my grief. It's something that's given me a real sense of purpose and felt really aligned with the timing.
Please remain seated.
Welcome, everybody, to the Rodriguez Project here at Mastermynd Media. I have somebody across the table that we haven't really had a deep conversation in a couple of years, but we always catch right up, and this time we're doing it on camera. So Stephanie Matsuba is here to join me today. What's up? How you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Thank you for having me. And this could potentially go for 4 hours. So yes. I hope there's a timer set.
Absolutely. Well,
okay,
luckily
great.
There is.
Okay.
There quite literally.
Literally is.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. This
cool.
is important.
Yes.
When did this? A lot of people know you for this, and I love it. It's such a cool thing because you can make it funny, but you can also make when something is super important. Mm-hmm. But there's so many important things in life, and you highlight them in this unique way by saying this is important. When did that even start?
So funny, and I'm so glad you asked because the main reason I started doing it was because I was very apprehensive on social media. I didn't really get what it was, so I just started posting things and saying, this is important as a way to say it wasn't important. I didn't know. Yeah. It was like me sharing, doing the Instagram, like sharing avocado toast. And I was very late to Instagram. And then I just really liked it. And I started seeing it as like this cool vessel to talk about stuff that was like actually important and the distinction. And then it also sounds great. And, but yeah, it's just so funny because sometimes I'll see people, they're like, this is important. Yes. And then I'm like, hey, and then that's where it all goes.
It's kind of like a natural thing that sometimes, you might hear somewhere else, but now you've coined it to a point where it's like, oh, you think everybody thinks of you when it happens. Or if you don't have a caption, if you put that, it works.
Exactly.
It's super smart.
Exactly. Then you don't have to think of anything.
You've hacked the internet.
I've hacked the internet.
Yes.
We can all go home.
No, we can't. We still got 54 minutes. But yeah, I want to talk about this one woman show that you just did. I want to talk about your time as chief of staff at Community as they were revolutionizing the way of marketing, which I was super interested in and got my mind working. I always love new stuff like that. And your time in documentaries, as you're still doing a lot of documentaries, and you've done so much, and you always fascinate me. So, but the idea of the Rodriguez Project is like live a life worth writing a movie about, right? Which you are no stranger to.
Amazing. Yes.
So if we're looking at your film, could be titled, This is Important. Important. But how would your, like, where did things start? How would your movie start?
So great. And I think the best way for you to know that is to come see my one-woman show.
Yes.
But no, really, seriously, like I think for a long time I thought, as many people I think like their life is a movie. It can be very easy to make theatrical choices in what you're doing. And I was always kind of hiding from certain parts of me, is very duplicitous. So now the start of my film / one-woman show / TV show / everything is just me at my bare real Stephanie.
Yes. I love that.
Which is probably not even something you have seen yet, Mark, and I'm excited for you to see. It's not as weird as I'm making it seem.
Oh, wait, listen, I'm intrigued. I didn't even know until a couple of days ago when you had posted something, but I was like, wait, what? So so it's still ongoing? So
I premiered it at the Hollywood Fringe Festival.
Awesome.
And then I'm doing a run of it in the fall.
We're there.
Please.
Yes.
Please.
Jai and I. What's up, Jai? Jai's here
Jai.
Hey, what's up?
Yes.
Hey.
So we'll go. We're there. Let us know as soon as they come on sale, and we'll buy tickets.
Of course.
and
Thank
be
you.
there.
I
Be
will.
first
And we'll
in
even
line.
buy tickets for a guest.
And
to
we'll
come
bring
out.
people.
Ooh,
A couple or something.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Yeah,
I would
you'll
love
get
that.
the first link then.
Yes, that's really interesting what you said. Like, who you are, like real and raw, and then also people living this life where maybe make these choices that could be quite theatrical. But I think everybody is on like some sort of spectrum of being super calculated to being super spontaneous. Where do you land within that? Like, what's your life been like?
Oh my gosh. I think I love this question because I think I make these epic plans on plans on plans, and then they just completely disappear with one choice.
Yeah.
So I think it's really good to recognize that in myself because I used to spend a lot of time planning and then not executing. And then now, even with my show, what I've seen is I'm like, oh no, if there's a plan, let's consistently go through the plan, but let's make space for where I know my tendency is to be more spontaneous or be more explorative, I guess, or be more, I would be like, oh, I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything.
I haven't thought about this yet.
Yeah.
Saved and yeah.
Exactly.
That's super crippling. I've always been super calculated, and then things started happening. It's not bad to be super calculated.
No.
Unless it's holding you back, and it was always holding me back. And I had like a turning point in like 2015 where I was like, okay, I gotta be more spontaneous. I can't care about certain things because based on my current life path, if I am super calculated, ensuring that my credit is perfect and all this, like all these things, I'm just like, I would just stay stagnant the rest of my life. And I threw all that out the window and lived a more, down the middle of that spectrum. And it started working out better for me.
Are you in the middle now?
I think so. Where would you say?
You're asking me?
Yeah. Where would you say? Jai's my girlfriend too, by the way, if you're new to the show. So.
Yeah, I'm not just a girl behind the camera, but I would say you are, but you're also like right at the cusp.
Yeah. I'm
So
like maybe right down the middle. Maybe still more calculated than spontaneous.
Okay.
But I think we'll eventually get into a spontaneous chapter, and we're like, I'm a big life is in chapters type of person too, and like looking at my past, being like, okay, this was, and I broke it down on this other podcast. It was like, okay, I had like my hired phase, 3 H's. It was like the hired phase where I was working for other companies, and I was waiting tables and doing the auditioning and that kind of thing, and then I sold everything, went all in on my company, and then I was like, okay, this is the hustle phase. And then that got to be like, things are starting to happen.
Right.
I'm learning a lot, I'm growing a lot, but
Right.
then my health was suffering. So then now I'm in my health era where I have more of a balance, and I'm happy to be here. I wish I would have done it, maybe like 1,000 Big Macs ago, but we're getting there.
Not the Big Mac.
No way. Like, I mean, I love McDonald's.
Yeah, it's good.
Why is everyone like such a shamer when it comes to McDonald's? Like, I love McDonald's.
Oh, I love McDonald's. I love McDonald's.
I have to Uber Eats it and then like have them drop it off at the door, and then I look out the door like, I don't want to
like
walk
a little
in
raccoon.
Run out like I know my excuse used to be because my grandma loved McDonald's. It would be like, oh well, I have to go. My grandma wants to eat this for lunch.
Yeah.
I'm like,
oh, your grandma. I love your family. I'm so sorry to hear that she had passed, but what a beautiful life. And I feel so honored to be able to have known you throughout this whole experience, and still seeing that you would share some stuff afterwards as well. But like just your connection with her, that was so beautiful.
Thank you for saying that. And I think like, one thing that was super important to me, I think with just being an artist and pursuing that was because that was, as my grandma was in a very visible last chapter, and she lived to be almost 102 years old.
Wow.
So when you can see someone approaching and them approaching what is, no matter what, going to be the end of their life, to see the way that she would make choices or how she would encourage us. And she was always making sure with acting, she used to say, well, did you go put your name in at the theater? Or, she didn't know the exact terminology, but it was like her way of, making sure that I was on track. But I felt what was going to happen with her passing because we were so close. And that's why when I started studying with Richard Lawson at his acting studio, he prepared me for a place to be able to put my grief into a piece of work that I had always wanted to make, which was my one-woman show.
Wow.
So it was like and that's where I think it does help us to be really calculated and strategic, because we know ourselves really well. I find us very similar in that way.
Sure.
And so I was like preparing for what I knew this chapter would be with the absence of, you know, my best friend.
Yeah.
But that's why I feel so grateful with my show, because I knew that this was the chapter for doing that.
Yes.
And maybe it should be paired with a health chapter.
Yes.
We're very inspired by how excited you are about yours. But yeah, I thought that was.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite thing about being a creative. I'm so grateful to be creative, and that's why I don't take it lightly. A lot of people aren't creative, but they'll live through the songs that somebody else wrote to be able to feel like somebody's right there with them. And I don't play guitar and sing often anymore. That was another chapter in my life where I was doing music for 5 years straight. But I love having a guitar downstairs. If I am going through something, I can pick it up and just let something pour out of me, like literally like tears, crying. Or if, you know, super happy, then something comes out as well. But being able to put all that grief somewhere and turn it into something beautiful, turning a negative into a positive. And that's so beautiful that you did that with your one woman show.
It's so, and I love also your music is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
I hope that era comes back, that chapter, maybe after the health chapter.
Yeah.
Because I it's very moving for me in the same way where music isn't my like go-to. I would say I wish it was, and I should probably take a look at that. You know, I've always loved piano, but I think that being said, without having a place to put that stuff or an outlet, like you said, if maybe you're not a creative or artist yourself, but knowing what things kind of fuel you or can help you at times where you need it, is just super important.
Absolutely.
It's actually important.
It is. It's the best tagline ever. Wow, that is amazing. So yeah. So on the spectrum, though, I'm not going to let you skip it.
Yes.
Where do you land? Are you just
okay?
Currently, I guess.
I am currently completely in the calculated strategic, and I'm not going to lie, feels really good.
Yeah. Awesome.
The only thing is that I've been better about is being good with if something happens, and that happens with my family or my friends or people I care about, that it needs to require to drop everything.
Sure.
And so that's a different, almost like skill set in itself, being able to know the plan will still be there when you get back.
Yeah.
I had something like that happen the other day, very calculated 24 hours in New York I had planned, and I had to stay behind for exactly 8 hours. And I was like, my brain went to, you know,
Goodwill Hunting.
Yeah. I was like, carry the 3.
Yeah.
Delta, you know, so, but yeah, calculated. Are you kidding me? Over here.
I was like, whenever I'm like, when I'm like consistently like right on time, or like I have enough time to do this and I do, and I'm not late, I'm like, damn, I'm fucking good, dude. I'm fucking calculated. It's like
down
the
to the
smallest thing.
second.
Like, yeah, like I know I can get to the gym, be there for an hour or 58 minutes, and then get back. I can just feel it. And then every once in a while I'm way off, and I'm like, I failed myself. Just give myself props, like dapping myself up on the way home. But yeah, so yeah, within your journey, so like after, like, where did your like professional journey start? What's that chapter looking like?
Ooh, I would say, well, professional, like in the startup.
Yeah, the startup, or like when
my life.
Yeah,
as a grown up.
yeah.
So I went to USC for undergrad for acting, actually.
Oh, wow, cool.
And then almost immediately after I graduated, you know, was ready to do that. And then my friends from high school reminded me that we were going to move to Australia when we graduated from college.
Oh, wow.
So I pieced out and was there for almost 2.5, 3 years, on and off. And then came back to help with some stuff with my grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that is when I kind of started entering different professional. I love that thing you said about your hire era.
Mm-hmm.
That was my hire era for sure.
Interesting.
I got hired to work at the Equinox, which was the best job ever. The best job ever. Because you meet so many people. And if you don't understand LA and you work at a gym, you start to get it. Mm-hmm. You're like, okay, this is how the people that come in early kind of do this. And the people that come in at lunch means they don't, or, you know, they can come in at 11. They run their own lifestyle. You know, you could kind of start to figure out, you have a lot of conversations. And through that job is how I started meeting people to do other professional jobs.
Yeah.
and I got into working for a documentary company.
Wow. Equinox is the key.
Listen, that's a secret that I'm
Yeah.
willing to share now because I'm past that chapter.
Did you meet
but-
Sarah there as well?
Yes.
Yeah, Sarah. Remember Sarah that
Yes.
came
Sarah
by?
Montez?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, we like after we'd known each other for a couple years, like, wait, you know her?
Yes, she's
Yeah.
and see, like some of the best people, some of my real friends in LA still, they all do different things. We're from standing on that desk together for
Yeah.
4 to 8 hour shifts.
Yeah. Wow.
But
That's a huge unlock. My unlock was the Griddle Cafe. The
Exactly.
Griddle and Buca de Beppo was in Encino, and I have some really strong friends or people that were out there like fighting for me in the acting world, and then still good friends with them to today. But the Griddle, when I wanted to like go into business, I was like. Those are the people I was pitching. And then
Exactly.
a friend of mine, Mark Spitz, who was like the Olympic swimmer from the 70s, I remember telling him about my idea, and then he came on board, and he started like pitching people and stuff. And
Oh, wow.
but you build these great relationships because for us, it was like, because there's a long ass line, but if you know me, you can get in. Now we're cool. And then you build a better relationship. Now you're more friends. And then if you have something to bring to the table, then let's see what we can do together.
Exactly. And I think they see that consistency of there is a distinction between just, it's like a work ethic thing
Yeah.
and a character thing.
And a vibe. Yeah. They come in and you're there. And that's what I love about the gym too. Everybody's in that good. Everybody's bettering themselves. So what's up?
It was in I'm like, oh, okay. Cause I used to work in bars. So many different chapters. I remember one time my sister said, I said, what's an odd job? And she said, it's what you do. I was like, oh, okay. But it, just like even that, like being in nightclubs and all that and seeing how long can I sustain this being up till, whatever hours of the night. And I'm like, I want to be with the people that are, when we're leaving work at the club, that they're arriving at work. And that was how I got to the gym. But I love hearing that was you in the same way, because then now I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense,
So if you're just starting out, be wise about what job you're taking, especially depending on what field you're in. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, even Equinox, we had healthcare.
Really?
And no one would have ever guessed that because we, it wasn't publicized, but that was a huge, you're 24, you don't have, the whatever transition happens with healthcare that I can't even remember.
Yeah.
I think when you're 26 or no, 20. Yeah. I think when you're 26, you're not allowed to get on your parents' insurance anymore.
What it is.
I was kicked off
Yes.
at 22.
Yes.
Yeah.
I must have already been kicked off.
Yeah. Well, if you're in school, you can still be on it or something like that.
I think if you're the dependent, I think if you're still a dependent.
We
And
need a
that's-
healthcare
Expert.
Who we got that
Can we
does
call-
that?
No, that's awesome. That's a nice little unlock there. So, and then that's when you started doing the documentary films and everything. And how was that? How was that journey? So, because you were going to USC and then going to Australia, which I mean, we could do a whole podcast on that.
We
I'd love to
will.
hear about that. But yeah, more about like the journey, the professional journey, and how working for a company like that. So now you have the skill set from acting and everything, and then with these new connections, and then you start this new chapter where it's like, okay, this is like let's do it.
This is for real. And I think what attracted me to documentary was, I'm Haitian, and I had heard about a guy and another woman that were making documentaries about Haiti.
Wow.
And I found an intro. My sister went to Harvard, and she had somehow knew someone that was also from her graduating class. I can't remember the details, but did the thing of like getting connected to them. And I was like, I'm here and I love what you're doing. I think it's super important. People don't have an understanding of Haiti. It's a very complicated place. And one of the most vibrant, beautiful places in the whole wide world. So to see people that I thought were accurately giving that opportunity for people to see in the universe was super purposeful to me. Then we started working and I was like, whoa, this is a lot of work.
Yeah.
Documentary, it takes a long time.
Yeah.
You're working with a lot of different mediums, and then you don't really always have as much money to do things. So you have to be really creative.
What were the average budgets that you guys were working with?
It just depends. You can make a documentary with $5,000.
Yeah.
If you're
the one shooting it.
Yeah, if you're the one shooting it, you take a deferred pay. No, like shorts, I'd say at that time, I don't really remember because it was like maybe 6 years ago, but you could do one with 50 to 100.
Yeah.
You could do, but it depends on what you want. You know, we were doing stuff in VR. It's always going to be slightly more expensive.
Yeah.
And now, you know, you can do maybe a cool documentary where you want to expedite it pretty quickly for probably about like 1.3 million and have it be consistent with what you see probably on Netflix or see on streamers. Don't quote me though, because I haven't sat in a financing documentary film meeting in a week, which means it's probably changed.
Yeah.
But what I love to tell people about docs is like, if you have something and you want to work on it, just start filming. We have so many different resources now. You can find a way to find the right tools, use your iPhone, whatever it is, because then you can show people, hey, this is what I would like to do. It's really hard if you don't have any visuals. I'm like, this sounds really interesting, but what does it look like? It can just be a better avenue. That's how I feel, but that's how I receive information. Some people, they can just see a one pager and that's enough. For me, I'm like, what does this look like? It doesn't need to be a fancy thing, just so I can get a piece, like a little piece of them.
Yeah, and a piece of them. And that's when we're like building decks and stuff for people. It's like, how do you bring the creative so that the exec or investor doesn't have to use their imagination? If you can fully communicate that, but also how can you, based on using similar titles or like data from the past, to show that it has a high return on investment.
Exactly.
The business side of things. If you can bring those together and bridge the gap, then you come in, then you're more likely to get people on board with you.
100%.
Because you've done all the thinking. They don't have to. They can just say yes or no.
It's like, they're like, wow, I'm aligned with this from an ethos perspective, and this can be executed with something as simple as money.
Yeah.
No problem. You know, I have that. Excuse me. But I think that one thing that is cool, and I see you do this with everything, is you have to have thought through every single question that anyone could ask you. You know, like, even if you don't have the right answer or there's no such thing, be able to say confidently, you know, we've thought this through. We won't know till X phase, or there's no crime in being like, we don't know. But we've thought about it at least.
Yeah, I had a meeting with an investor last week, and he was like, how do you see this being $1 billion franchise? Because the billion, you don't want to just throw the $1 billion word in there just so they're like intrigued, because like you never want to overpromise. You say like, oh, the return on investment is like, you're going to make so much money. It's like, well, how? But because I had done all my due diligence and thought everything through, I was able to communicate how we saw that happening. And then because he asked me that question later on, I was like, I want to strengthen this even more. And that's when I started bringing, when I told you earlier downstairs, the Broadway aspect of it. I was like, oh, that's another component that I didn't even think of that really fits this. So yeah, think through everything and jump in and make something. Have you seen Searching for Sugarman?
No, I haven't. What is that?
My favorite documentary.
What's it about?
It's about this guy named Rodriguez from Detroit. But
I wonder why it's your favorite documentary.
It's the craziest documentary.
Really?
Don't give too much.
So good.
But here's the thing. It won the Oscar.
Okay.
You have to watch it.
All right, I will. I'm kind of embarrassed I haven't watched it now.
They ran out of money.
Ooh.
And they had to shoot the rest on an iPhone with like the High 8 app or whatever. And then they shot it to match everything. It is so beautifully done. And there is a tragic ending with the filmmaker the next year after he won the Oscar.
I don't want to know what happened.
Well, we'll just leave it as that. Okay. I don't want to know what happened. No, he died by suicide. I think there was, I don't know exactly, but there was something I think of like reaching the highest caliber you could ever reach. At least that's what I read something about that. And then, the daunting task of trying to do that again, potentially. Don't quote me. I'm not positive.
No.
I remember reading something on that, but there's so many great stories out there. And if the right person tells them with the right team, you can make something beautiful that changes people's lives. And this literally, I can't wait for you to watch it.
It's clearly changed your life. I want to watch it because you are not life change. For you to say that it was a life-changing film, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to watch it when I go home.
Please do.
I will.
Full book report afterwards.
Absolutely.
I'll email it. ChatGPT.
Okay.
Stop. I bet you could do that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I probably would too. It sounds like fun a little bit.
Yeah. Have you been working with ChatGPT at all?
No.
You're not using it?
No.
You know about it?
I know about it, but I'm not using it. That's what I'm saying. I think now is that's my entry point.
Yeah. The book report. post-podcast book
Everyone's
report.
like, what?
That's something about the show. It's how, live a life worth writing a movie about, but then you also have to do a book report on the movie afterwards.
They're like, okay, send it over.
So
That'd be a good thing. Like after each podcast, send the guest away with a good movie to watch.
Yeah, that's really
I like
great.
that.
Ooh.
Worth writing.
I
So
like
what-
that.
So, or maybe have the guests say what movie to watch, one of their favorite
Oh,
movies.
trade
Yeah.
movies. Do a movie
Yeah.
trade.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Oh,
all right.
I love that.
Do you have one now?
A movie trade?
Yeah. So I give you
Let me think.
Searching
I'm
for
going
Sugar Man.
I'll give you, by the end of this conversation, I'll have one for you.
All right. Well,
I
that's the
love-
show, everybody. And
Thank you and good night. Oh, good for me to see my time. Okay, cool. So funny.
The end of the
outro
show.
music.
And we're out.
Props to you for knowing which button it was.
I was really trying. I have to add little buttons that show what exactly everything is. Great.
It's
Yeah.
perfect. You're killing it.
All right. So yeah, I love that chapter. When I met you, did I meet you there, or like how soon did you start Community as the chief of staff? Which for people that don't know, how does
Community?
what's the one-liner for Community?
Text messaging at scale. A new platform at the time from when we started, but it allowed you to do one-to-one messaging and one-to-many.
Yes.
Something that had not been done before at all.
Yeah, where you'd see, because I remember seeing, I was so stoked that you were there too, because I started seeing all this from a marketing standpoint. I would see like J-Lo being like, text me at this number. I'm like, wait a second, and Gary Vee and all these people. And I'm like, wow, this is brilliant. How are they doing this? And then I found out that you're the chief of staff of the company. Like, so can we come in the office? And you said we came and checked out the office and everything.
In Santa Monica.
Yeah, it was it was revolutionizing the way that people were marketing, and we came up with a bunch of new ideas how we could use it. But yeah, what was it like in that? Was it like the transition into that space, but also being part of a company like that?
So interesting. And I think of the chapters, that one is the most dynamic because a startup, there's like what people think a startup is. Then there's the people that have the camaraderie if you've had one. And by startup, I mean tech startup, similar to like Silicon Valley, Silicon Beach type of startup. Then there's like what actually really happens.
Yeah.
And that is so different business to business. I think what was interesting about Community, and I actually started working, I took the job with Community right around when we met.
Yeah.
That Sundance when we were hanging out in a big event. That was all of the Community early people were there, and all of my documentary people were there at the same time.
Were you guys putting that event on as well?
Yeah, we threw a big party.
The documentary company.
Yes.
Yes.
I think the Utah Jazz were there. I think that's just so funny because it was Sundance.
Yeah.
Sundance is like it's like still the party thing, the party text. There's a cool party over here.
It's always like when people tell me that they're at Sundance and like, oh, we're checking out a Utah Jazz game. I'm like, you're going all the way to where is it? Salt Lake. Yeah, which is like an hour, 45 minutes, an hour. But it's like, you got 4 days at Sundance max where you can really make shit happen. You're gonna go watch a game.
You're gonna go over here?
Yeah.
Like the skiing is one thing, but you're going to a game.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a separate trip.
Yeah.
But yeah, Community was awesome. The CEO and the two founders at the time, we just really got along well, and I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
You know this. You have only built incredible businesses off of this exactly, which is like, what is the right, almost adjacent person to me? What's the right partner? What's the right, what am I good at? What are the things that I should be doing? And what are the things that I need to find someone else to do, but of the same quality or of the same mindset that can execute, make decisions, even some decisions that they wouldn't make themselves. Like sometimes I would have to make a decision for Community where I would think, okay, this is what I would do. And then how do I combine what I would do with what I know Community needs to do? Like, how can I put my own special Stephanie in it?
Yeah.
But then also make sure I'm executing what I know we need to do. And so that was what it was for a good early year.
Wow.
You know, just everyone has to take on everything because it's all you can afford. But we were moving at such a fast trajectory because the guys had created something that was, it was almost like the reason the product was so unique is because the product was excellent. And they had built it on, imagine like railroad, right? And there's the two railroads that everybody's using. And there's like the one track going and the other track going. They found a third one that nobody was using, that like trains could still get on.
Wow, yeah.
And it was like more about them deciding which trains we're going to get on and have access to this first.
Wow.
And having to do like that data like analysis actually of what would be the best. Because that was going to determine where the company would go.
Yeah, and you also don't want to grow too fast, which can be super. I never really understood that. I was like, what do you mean too fast? That's more money. You know, it's like, yeah, but it's also client, like keeping your clients and the retention, and like could be detrimental to your company. So when we're moving slowly but surely, you're like, okay, you can make bigger leaps as you go, but if you don't have a foundation, you're a brand new startup. It's difficult.
Oh my gosh, 100%. You know, you're getting lots of money. You think, okay, we're going to build this runway of how we think the money will need to be spent.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, there's that perfect thing that you brought up earlier of being very calculated, very strategic, and then forget that, because with a startup, it's only going to go to spontaneity.
Yeah,
you know, you're making
risks and things
all the time.
Yeah.
I think my time there was the best learning experience I've ever had. As you said, we had lots of public figures on the platform. I met so many people, saw so many different working styles, and we would take like 5 meetings with all kinds of different people all across town a day. But the thing that I learned the most was like having to make those decisions. I'd never been in a situation where I knew that the decision that I made affected a lot of other people. And so even just from an ethical standpoint, taking that on, I take that really seriously. So I was trying to always make sure I was educating myself, staying within the tech, but also within business, and that ability for me to just level myself up. It really ended up being just for me. I mean, it was wonderful for community, but I had never done anything like that before. But I would say now, when I do need to make a decision that has to do with something that affects me 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I can do that almost immediately.
Wow.
So that was like the biggest skill I would say that I took away. And it's an important one, you know, we're grown-ups. We have to make decisions about our whole life all the time.
Yeah. And you got to earn those lessons too. Cause it's not, it's like that day in, day out, you know, it's not for the weak.
No, completely.
Yeah. Wow. That's really amazing. Cause I just think, you know, I'm always looking at ways of being innovative and seeing new things, especially the AI coming out. It's like, okay, how can we use this? Okay, Web3, okay, there's blockchain and Bitcoin. Is this real? Is this not real? But how can we, and that's one thing I'm really starting to think about now too, because I've as I mentioned downstairs, I just read Bob Iger's book,
A
Ride of a Lifetime, and how he became the CEO of Disney for the last 15 years, and he had to earn that. He did a political campaign to get that job, because somebody told him that he needed to, because he was because he was the only one up for the job that was already at Disney. He was the COO. But there's so many things you just think, oh, well, yeah, he probably just had a natural progression and got the job eventually. And he's one of those guys that gets the job. And it's like, nobody is one of those guys. You have to earn that, or girls. So I think it's like reading that and seeing how they were super innovative and how he saved the company, and how Michael, I forget his last name, that saved the company 21 years before that. And you have, so coming into it and thinking from like a CEO perspective, it's like, okay, what's out there and where are we now? And how can we revolutionize the way we're going about things, or anyone's going about things, where we're the first to do something or to do something that somebody else is doing, but doing it better.
Right.
And so I'm always just thinking in that headspace. So for you to be there during your time at Community, to just be around that and to be making decisions, like that is huge.
Because even sometimes the decisions are as small of like, well, should we eat lunch today at 11, or should we eat lunch at 1? Well, if we eat lunch at 11, we might burn out by 2. If we eat lunch at 1, are we going to be too hungry by the time we get to our 2 o'clock? You know, like little things you think, but you're really learning about human beings.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so interesting. And I think this was something that everyone at Community really did really well, is that they were always enthusiastic about having to solve problems. They weren't like problems. It was more just showing up, knowing that we had an opportunity to really push ourselves in a way, because it was going to make a lot of other things better for a lot of people. And it felt very like service and purposeful in that way. And in a tech environment, that's unique. You know, it's like not just building for the sake of building because we know that this can be effective and really work. But what I love about you, because you're an innovator. Yes. And you also understand everything. You don't just, oh, that's Web3. You go and you take it and you understand it. So then when you're making decisions coming from informed place.
Yeah.
You know, that's something I would like to, you know, by osmosis,
Mhm.
take from you a little bit, because sometimes I won't want to absorb myself as much in something I'm not super maybe drawn to or interested in. But how would I know if I didn't even look into it? You know, if I
Right.
didn't spend that time understanding what it was. And then that's how, like you were saying with the $1 billion thing, you can do that because you already have access, because you've already thought through all of these channels in different ways.
Yeah.
So
thank
teach
God
me,
for the
my
internet.
friend.
Well, thank God for the internet. Thank you for saying that. But here's the thing. I wasn't always somebody that would like take the time to learn things. Actually, in high school, I thought I was stupid because I would read a history book and be like, what?
I don't get it.
Like I just read the chapter 5 times. And like I would get to the bottom of the page and know what I was going to wear to school the next day, but not know. It just wasn't interesting to me.
Right.
Now it is super interesting. So you have to know yourself. You can't just make yourself like love something.
Exactly.
You know, but I mean, I think you're kind of downplaying like how like analytical your mind is and how many things like as you're talking about certain things. It's just like, yeah, I guess when it comes to Web3 and like AI and stuff, and it just comes down to how you can extract that information and then retain it as well to be able to talk about it. And that's what I love about my life now, is that I'm constantly pitching for new clients for social media or whatever, and or pitching a film or trying to raise funds or whatever the case. So I don't second guess myself anymore, because I'm like, yeah, I know everything's in here.
Yep.
And now, since I'm not smoking weed or drinking coffee, which, you know, I wish I could have found a balance. I'm too extreme. But eventually maybe I will be able to get back onto it and find a balance, but I'm super clear minded now.
Yes.
I used to need the coffee for the jolt to
just like
fire
pop.
away. Yeah. But now I'm kind of more steady and like, you know, I can explain myself because I'm explaining it every single day to people, you know, and so I think that's where the practice makes perfect. And whatever kind of information that you're drawn to find the best sources for that. Now, like for books, I don't read books. I do audiobooks, and it's great for me. But sometimes I'll read an audiobook that somebody recommended to me, and I'm like, nope, not
for me.
No. But all these, I'm doing this like new, stretch of CEO books and businesses and culture, and I'm like, a lot of it is telling me that what I've been doing is great, but thinking about, and that's why I was able, as you're talking about community, I'm able to understand the different processes of what happened during your time there, but like how you could be the chief of staff and build a great culture. But because I've learned from these other ones, I haven't built something that big yet. So it's like I'm able to understand it just because recently I just dove into a book that I actually found a way that I could retain information. So yeah, that's what I would say. But I think you're already there. I would like getting information from you too.
This is always a merging of the minds, but I think, like you said, and that is, you just unlock something for me that I think is the toughest. It's like, okay, well, if I see myself going here, or like I want $1 billion business, right? I know what that looks like. I'm like, okay, I know it has this. Well, how do I get there?
Yeah.
Because I've never been there, you know? So what are the resources I have to figure that out? And I think that was the biggest thing, because it's like no choice is the wrong choice, but you just have to make a choice, you know?
Yeah.
And I think like those things were really interesting. And some of it had to do with things that I learned where, yeah, like the person that's attracted to being at any company, but especially a tech startup, when there's 5 people, is going to be very different typically than the person that's interested in being the 500th employee or the 5,000.
Where were you guys at during your time at?
Me on the first 10. First 10. I don't know. I think all of us, if we sat around a table, we'd be like, no, I was at the couch.
Yeah.
You were at the place, you know.
And then when you left, how many were you guys
when
at?
I left, they were just rounding the corner probably towards 150, 200.
Yeah, that's...
So, you know, you kind of go through different chapters too. It's like you get to about 30. You're like, all right, let me re-sign up for this. And that was the way that Matt, the CEO, who I adore, and we had such a great working relationship. I think in any chief of staff, that term used to mean something very different. I think it was some people were trying to find a way to understand it. And it was usually just a form of elevating someone that they didn't know how else to elevate. That's just my experience. I don't know if that was similar for a lot of people, but for me, it's like just really an extension of the CEO, and you have to know every CEO is very different. They're going to need different things. The business is going to need different things. I see that as like a partnership. It's like a yin and yang type of thing, most successful anyway. And But that being said, every time we got into a new chapter, we would sit as a whole team and say, this is what the next chapter of this business looks like. This is what the hours looks like. This is what the product's going to look like. We would address it for each area of the business so that everyone had the opportunity to think about where they're at, because it was going to be such a drastic change, and see if that made sense for them, you know, because maybe it didn't and there was nothing wrong with that. But at least they knew, instead of getting into what was essentially a new role, a new job, and still kind of wondering how things just happened to them. So that's always like my advice with people with startups, just making sure that they're re-signing up with it as the business evolves, so that they are not still looking in the past at like, oh, that was so great when it was just 10 of us. You know?
Yeah. Like,
I'm like, was it?
Yeah. And it's like, if it stayed that way, it wouldn't be working.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah.
The goal is to not have 10 of us.
Yeah. Wow. That's, I can't imagine it. And that's what I like, just being in the game and hearing from people like yourself, like these different stories, as I'm preparing for what, you know, the universe that I'm building. But, you know, one thing that happened to me recently was I had somebody come to me and they had a big opportunity for a large investment. And it was a long shot, and not even something I potentially would even take, but it gave me the opportunity to take everything out of my head from the last 17 years and put it all into one deck. And then now I have it, and I'm like, this is the 20-year plan. And now I can take that and then, tweak things as I go. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was, thank you. Yeah, it was very attractive to like, oh, we could just start this and it'd be fully funded. But then it's also like, but then you don't own any of it, because now, you know, so do you really want this, or do you want to go, you know, for the next 20 years or 30 years, 40 years, is really build this piece by piece. And so the initial reason for building it was different than how I feel about it now. So now I have it all laid out. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Now I can actually show this to people that are investing in something else. And like, also you would get an opportunity to be a part of this, and this. And, but so the thought that comes to mind from that is like, I've had all these ideas over the years. The best ideas have stayed with me. And, different films have dissipated, but then the ones that I really love are still in there somewhere, but now they're in a deck, and then now they're in an outline, and now they'll be written, and then they'll be packaged. How many ideas do you currently have in your head that are somewhat formulated, but you haven't put them?
Well, first of all, I want to, in addition to my book report, I will be doing my 17-year deck.
I'll send you mine so you can see like how we went about it.
That's like an incredible, I really want to do that. And I think it would be, I even think about this conversation. I'm like, wow, that would just be such a different, my mindset would be in such a different place, you know? The inventor. That's a great idea. But yeah, I think, what was the question? I'm sorry.
So
I got so caught up.
And it makes me think of this, because like your ideas, because I know you like doing the documentaries of your own, your one woman show. These are these things that have been in there for a minute, or like how many ideas are kind of floating because you're, working on other companies and all that, but now you're doing some of your own things and putting them, some action behind those.
I think, and like everything serves a purpose in a different chapter. And like, for me, what I feel so grateful for is that I got to observe a lot, and I think in doing that, sometimes you can feel a little, at least for me, I felt a little angst sometimes, because I felt, oh, I have this idea and I want to do it, but maybe I wasn't ready. Maybe I still there was stuff I needed to see or do, but there were like things that I always knew I wanted to do. Like I knew I wanted to have my own show. And I knew I wanted to have like an umbrella, different than a production company, just an umbrella of me and the things that I wanted to fall into that. And them all having to do with the different chapters of me, I understand investment because I went through a very specific experience where I had to learn a lot and retain a lot of information very quickly, which then I also grew an interest in it. And it's
which is so huge to know all of that, and to be a part of that is so huge.
While it's happening, you're like, what the, and then afterward you understand, I'm like, whoa, this is a skill that also takes time to understand, and it's by design marginalizing, and I'm like, oh, I'm passionate about that. I'm passionate about bringing this back down to size for people so that everyone can be able to build marginalized wealth or wealth within marginalized communities. Great. So like, that's an idea I have. Well, am I at a place right now to be able to execute that? No. for what reasons, 'cause I'm not making big investments. I'm not doing that. But that's something that's there, but not in this chapter. But I still want to make sure is a part of me and that I'm not losing. And I think that's with doing my own show, which has been wonderful because it has allowed me to actualize something at the right season, at the right time, at the right moment of, you know, my dream. And that's why I know I always talk about RLS Studios with Richard Lawson, because I have big dreams. And he was one of the first people that gave me tools to execute them, you know, and allowed me to see that I didn't have to let go of every idea because it wasn't the right time, but looking at, well, what are the main ones? And then what one am I working on right now? Okay, well, I'm working on the show. Great, now I have the show. Well, what is the next iteration of the show? How does it keep moving, evolving, and growing to the things that I need it to be? Because I have other ideas that I think are, you know, you're like, especially as a writer, I'm a newer writer. You're like, oh, I could sell this.
Yeah,
I don't need, this doesn't need to be me. This is awesome, but I still equally want to see it.
Yeah.
I have ideas like that I think I probably come up with and maybe pull out and make one-pagers for every couple of days. And then there's like my ideas.
Yeah.
And those all have to do with one thing. It's mental health, identity, and grief. And that's like kind of my space. Anything that has to do with that that's specific to me is what are mine, I would say.
Yeah.
Because only I can tell them, and I know that. I know no one else is going to write that part or make that documentary or have that specific opinion about investment. So anything that's specific to me is the stuff that I know that I'm the owner of it, and that it's my responsibility to do that work and accountability. And then everything else, I'm like, it's just a collaboration, you know?
Yeah.
Like finding someone that maybe could execute. Like, you have so many ideas, Mark. You know, you have to find people to execute some of the things that there's only one of us.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When you first, like, you write your first piece or you package your first piece, like, all right, this is mine. This is going to be my vehicle that's going to break me in. And then as you continue to create, because you don't want to be a one-trick pony, you want to be able to have all of these different ideas. And eventually you're like, okay, these ones I'll sell. These ones I'm holding on to. But then I wrote a TV show that I was like, this is, you know, I don't care how long it takes. I'm going to star in it. And then as things have progressed and I've met different people, I'm like, actually, you know what? I'd be okay selling it if we could package it up and then he could walk it in the door because he's got a huge name right now. So this could be a nice project to then take to the next level. And I'd be okay with it. He's like my brother. You'll be, you know what I mean? So it's like, oh, maybe this is a great, and then we'll get it made. Because there's always one thing about me. I thought about this a lot because like during the beginning of the health journey, because I was having heart palpitations a lot, and Jai can contest to this, but I would bring it up all the time. I would say like, hey, if I die, like, you got to make sure that shit gets made. Because I would think about it often. I was having these heart palpitations that I skipped beats, but it was stress and how I was treating. I was, but it was happening off and on for a year and a half. But I would think, I was like, well, fuck, if I'm not going to be around here for this, then what's even the reason for it? Like, I just give it all to my nephew, give it out to people around me. And
we love
when you're doing something and you're almost done with it, you're like, oh shit. Like Walt Disney he died before Disney World came out.
Oh my gosh. I didn't know
I think
that.
it's months before. He was telling his brother or his brother Roy, he was in the hospital bed. He died of maybe lung cancer. But he was like pointing at the ceiling and saying how he wanted everything to be. But to build something, luckily he had already done Disneyland and built this, like the first of its kind, this huge creative studio. His whole story is really interesting. There's a PBS documentary that I watch like once a month.
Really?
Yeah. But to like get to especially when we're at the stage in our careers now where it's like, all right, we want our first big hit. When's our first big hit going to happen? And it's like, wait a second, like I want this to get done. There's always I always have those thoughts, but it's not even about, I was talking about this the other day. It's not really about getting there anyways. It's about the process, getting there and being lost in that moment.
Yes.
But I wanted to go back to your one woman show. So was it, I don't want to say easy to execute, but executing anything is not easy. But was it easier executing this than other things because of the state of mind you're in based on the grief that you were going through and the process? Or was there a time that you had to like, no, we're just doing this? Did you have to push through any big challenges to really ensure that you were going to get it done?
Oh my, Mark, this is the hardest. And I know you can understand this. When I use the word hardest, I mean it, the hardest thing I've ever done. And I think that's why it feels even more purposeful for me, because every single time knowing you're waking up to is something you love, but is equally as challenging as this. I think for me, the biggest difficult moment was I like to do stuff myself, by myself, in a cave, only relying on myself. And I had a huge shift in my acting class, actually, where I was working on it. And I was like talking to the teacher, and he's like, you know, you can't do this by yourself, right? I was like, yes, I can. He said, no, you can't. Who's going to direct it? I was like, well, I don't, me. He's like, it's a stage play. You're going to direct yourself in a stage play. You know, not in a way that was condescending, just asking logistical questions. Okay, well, who's going to, you know, how are you going to make sure that your writing sounds good? Who's going to read it for you? Can I just read? I don't know. You know, like things I hadn't really realized would be better if I inserted other people, if I collabed with other people. And that's where I realized I was stuck. I kept trying to do it by myself. Can't do it by myself, you know? And then that's when the process became so much more fun, because it was like me figuring out about me. This is the stuff that I do, the work that only I can do. And that's why this is super important. And then this is where I find people. I know I need someone that's good at this. And that's when our skill set kicks in. I know I need this, and I need this. Okay, who do I know that's the best at this, this, and this? And then how can I make sure that I'm, you know, making it a collaborative process, that they're included. It's not just about me and my show, but it was just so hard to execute because, of course, it's a show about grief. It's a show about mental health. You know, I live with bipolar disorder. I say that because sometimes there is a connotation that comes with that I have a lot of opinions about, of course, for a different day. But I think the most important part about it, and you being in the health chapter, is so beautiful, because what's the point of me being able to make something if I'm not handling my health, right? I won't be able to really do it and execute it. So that's kind of where I started, in making sure that my health was in check. Then when my health was in check, I was like, okay, it's me against the world. Can't involve other people, collaborated. And then that was when I had to make those steps of being like, okay, well, but if I'm making a project that's really about me, people are going to see me. And what does that feel like? And that's why this is the most important moment to me, because I'm not hiding. I mean, there's still things that people won't know about anyone, but I'm not hiding who I am. I'm not embarrassed about my identity. I'm not carrying that shame. I'm have a place to put my grief. It's something that's given me a real sense of purpose and felt really aligned with the timing. Could I have done that when I was, you know, still working at the Equinox? No.
It's like all these chapters could help inform as you make those decisions, even to put yourself into a place where somebody's going to tell you, you can't do this on your own. Like finding those right people that are going to be upfront, especially when they know, you know, it's like, and then, just building that team and the collaborative effort. I don't ever want to do anything by myself ever again, ever.
Ooh, me either. Amen.
Yeah. Ever. It's too much.
It's too much.
Man, you know?
You should, I need that on a t-shirt. Like I want to put, this is important, and then put that on the back.
Ooh.
I love that.
Do you have a merch
so
series
important.
of just, this is important, and with different sayings on the back?
I actually need to talk to you about that, because I have an idea for it, but I need someone that understands marketing that could really come in and make sure that what I'm thinking, that's not my area of expertise. So I would want, you know.
Oh, that's beautiful.
The little
I love that.
Over here.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it. But that thing you just said is like so on point. And gosh, you know, and I look at you and I'm like, man, Mark and I really been out here doing it.
Yeah. I've been in it.
Yeah,
through
really.
thick and thin, man. And it's, you know, it's, I always tell people like entrepreneurship, it's the worst thing ever, but it's also the best thing ever at the same time. And just like navigating business and doing your own thing, but also, you know, collaborating with the right people and it's not easy to find the right people. No. You gotta be patient with it. You have to work with the wrong people first sometimes, but those right ones stick around and they gotta be pulling their weight. And once you find those creative people, I always say, once you find them, hold on to them with everything you got. And sometimes maybe that'll look differently in 5 to 10 years.
Sure.
But those right people, they'll be in your life in some capacity. And that's what makes it all worth it and allows you to do at the highest of levels.
Oh, I just love that so much. And then it touches on, I was listening to something you said the other day though, about being really like able to enjoy the process of what it is.
Yeah.
I never understood what people were talking about with that.
Yeah.
I'm like, what do you mean enjoy the process? I'm trying to get to the place I'm trying to go.
Yeah.
But now that I understand and I kind of have a different perspective of like, gosh, I had so much fun working on this show, Mark. Like, so much fun working on it that even no matter what had happened at the performance of it, I was like so good, you know, that by the time I went to go do it, I was like, oh, this is just executing something that that's now in me that I've had so much, just had the best time doing. But when you're talking about having people around you, and I see that you and I will just always be in each other's life in that way, because it's like, who sees me, you know, and that will look different in different chapters, but that they even understand that I have different chapters.
Yeah.
And they want me to evolve, and they're not trying to be scared of having a real conversation and being able to listen and understand and grow and see that. So I think that's super important with just like anyone that's in your life. And as I've gotten much more mature, I've found who those people are, and it's also, I think, why I've been able to just take the step of doing my own stuff.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Congrats for you to put yourself out there and be unapologetically yourself. It's the best feeling.
It's the best.
When you don't care, when you're like, yeah, like,
Woo.
I remember I have like my OCD, and like I have like a, I don't know if it's not been diagnosed as Tourette's, but I have like my different twitches and stuff. And eventually once I got comfortable with that, and then now when I see, and like now I'm like, yeah, it's just part of me. Somebody at like acting class was like, I love like your twitches. I'm like, thanks. Like, it's fucking great. But when I had other people that are doing podcasts or something, like, hey, can you take that out? Cause this and this. I'm like, I mean, we can, but that's you. And if you're, and it's much better when you get on the other side of that. We're like, yeah, this is just how I am, and take it or leave it. Than being on the other side of being worried how somebody's going to perceive you. It adds to you. People can read that, I think. And
It's
allows
like
them
so
to be
much-
themselves too.
Because I'm like, what if we were doing that right now? That would stink.
Yeah.
You know, this would have
Yeah.
been a totally different conversation. And I get that everybody has their different things, but I just think it's so freeing to be able to, of course, there's parts about myself that I'm still like, but even the ability to have that and know that and not be scared of it.
Yeah.
I think that in itself feels like a huge chapter shift that I'm so
Absolutely.
excited for.
Yeah, so I can't wait to help you in any way that we can and just be along for the
Same.
ride. But right before we get into telling everybody where they can find you,
Yes.
what's your movie?
My movie?
Yeah.
Okay, so my movie that I want you to watch,
Yep.
My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Wow.
And you've never seen it, have you?
So my parents loved it.
Yeah.
And I think I've like maybe
You must have
15 years
rejected
ago.
it or something.
No, I don't know. I don't know if I ever tried to watch it. I
Yeah.
don't know well. I know I've seen some of it.
Yeah.
But I will sit down and watch it.
Just watch
this
it.
week. Yeah.
You
It
don't have
was
to
a
watch it
huge
this
sensation.
week. You don't have to watch it this week. I just think I was just trying to think of something where I'm like, what's something I like, but I just like can't imagine that Mark's watched. But I think if you watch it, it's just like that's the best when you tell your friends to watch a movie and then just figure
Yeah,
out
yeah.
what they think
Yeah.
with no real intention or purpose other than I just want to see if you like it.
I think I will because like I felt it was odd to me that my dad liked it. I was like, you loved it? Like really? He loved that. He loved like Ren and Stimpy back in the day. That was another one. I'm like, you do? Like he watches like The Odd
Your
Couple
dad.
and like a bunch of like old shows and stuff.
Huge fan. I'm a huge fan of your whole family.
Thank you. I'm a huge fan of yours as well.
Thanks.
And thank you so much for doing this. We'll definitely do a part 2 soon. And I
Yay.
can't wait to see your one woman show.
I can't
in the fall.
either. Please come see it. It's called Hypomanic.
I love it. And
You'll
tell
love
everybody
it.
else where they can find you on socials.
I am predominantly on Instagram at Stephanie Mitsuko, MITSUKO Matsuba.
Love it. Love it. Love it. And Jaima, tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find me at Jaima Official everywhere, JAIMA Official.
Ooh.
Yes, and I am Mark Rodriguez TV everywhere and Mastermynd Media. Thank you again. Man, I love this conversation.
Me too. It's just the best.
All right, we'll see you all next time. Peace.
Aloha.
Season.